All right, good afternoon. I'm going to call to order this regular meeting of the Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management Committee today. Today is February 3rd, 2016. I'm the chair of the Public Safety Committee, Belong Yang. With me today are council members Wright, Palmisano, Gordon, Quincy, and Council President Johnson. Today we have 5 items on our agenda. The first 3 items are public hearings for the fire chief, director of civil rights, and chief of police. The 4th item is referring to staff the subject matter of an ordinance amending Title 17, Chapter 427 of the Minneapolis Code of Ordinances regarding congregating on streets or sidewalks. And the 5th item is a postponement with regard to presentation from the Office of Emergency Management, postponing it till February 17th. And I will just, move the agenda around. First and foremost is just the consent item, just to refer that to staff. And then the second piece is just postponement. I think that's just much more notice than anything. So for the consent item, I will move that we refer that to staff. Any questions, council members? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. All right, today we have 3 public hearings on 3 department heads, and I'm going to do a few things, and we might be doing a few things differently. But first of all, when we do these public hearings, we will be taking public testimony today. We will then continue these 3 public hearings to the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Public Safety Committee on February 17th. At that time, we will again take public testimony. If you are speaking today, I ask that you not speak again on February 17th. With regards to today, we're going to switch it around a little bit. Before we start the public hearing for each of the department heads, we're going to give the opportunity for each of the department heads to address the committee for 5 minutes. After they address the committee members can ask questions, and the department heads will then provide the opportunity to answer those questions. And then after that, we will start the public hearing for the specific department head. So we will proceed as follows. I do not see the mayor here, so we will just do this. The public hearing process will proceed as follows. We have sign-up sheets for the speakers. If you wish to speak and have not signed up, please do so with the clerk. I will open the public hearing. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes, and we will continue until all speakers are allowed time to address the committee. When you get up, please state your name and address for the record, your organization if you represent one, and whether you support or oppose the reappointment. Written comments can be submitted to the clerk as well. All right, so anybody with any questions related to this, council members? All right, so we will begin the first public hearing with Chief Friedel. Please come on up and do your presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Yang. Chairman Yang, Council President Johnson, committee members. I'm proud again to say that I'm John Friedel. I'm proud to say that I'm the Chief of Minneapolis Fire Department. I'm also very honored and feel very privileged that the mayor has brought my name forward as the next term. Another term as a fire chief will be my 3rd term as fire chief. I'm very honored by that and very humbled by that. 3 years ago, actually 4 years ago, when I came back and became chief, I had, I often said in front of committee, in front of council, I said, I'm going to set a course and try to set a direction. I wasn't really sure what that was going to look like. I said, let's just go this way. I know we're going to go this way because we weren't really headed anywhere for a long time. So I said, let's go this way. And let's just see where we end up, knowing that at some point we're probably going to have to change direction. We'll probably have to make some change. But I'm very proud of what we've accomplished. I'm proud of my staff. I'm proud of my firefighters. I think we set a course. I think it's a course of optimism. I think we've taken some advantage of opportunities. I think we're all very optimistic about the future. And I hope that I get an opportunity to continue as the fire chief, because I certainly like to continue our journey and really redefine that direction that we're headed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Council members, any questions of the fire chief? All right, seeing none, I see the mayor's here. Mayor, we went a little bit ahead, so feel free to make your comments about the fire chief.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for allowing me to speak in your committee. John Friedel has proven himself to be an extraordinary leader for the Minneapolis Fire Department. We have seen his ability to lead day in and day out on the ground, day by day as a manager. Certainly his years in the department as a firefighter gave him a lot of ability. But we have also seen him rise to every occasion that has been placed before him. Whether it's a tragedy at someone's home where 5 of their grandchildren have died, whether it's a bridge that has collapsed in the city of Minneapolis, whether it's weather events where we need to make sure that we are coordinating fully, or whether it's dealing with the fact that we have fires burning in the street and his willingness to just go out there and talk about what that means for safety. Through all of it, he has been level-headed, his bedside manner is extraordinary, and at the same time, he's making sure that the right things happen for the fire department, for his firefighters, and for the people of Minneapolis. So I am proud to put his name forward for reappointment, and I ask that you support his nomination. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so with that, we will open the public hearing for the fire chief. I have a list of names right here, and the first person is Ronald Edwards.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Council President Johnson, and members of the committee. I take great pleasure to follow our mayor in regards to the outstanding job by the current incumbent. I've known him for many years. In fact, I first met him when he was a rookie. I have served in the role of a monitor and supervisor as it pertains to the fire department. And the chief is one of the finest persons that I've come to know. I've known many chiefs. Some of them were the best. Some of them left a lot to be desired. This is a man of principle and vision. I've had a chance to, over the last couple of years, to meet with him in private. I never feel that there is a hidden agenda, and I think that that is important. I am proud to stand once again for another chief of this department and encourage the council to continue the tradition of outstanding chiefs who bring both a vision and a mission of success. I'm also proud to call him friend, and I am equally proud that the mayor of our city has put forward his name once again for the 3rd time to be chief of the department. Thank you.
All right, the next speaker, Matt Clark, or Chief Matt Clark.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. I spoke to Chief Friedel quite a bit in taking the job as a police chief at the University of Minnesota, and I stand in support of his position and reappointment. One of the things that I realized very quickly at the university was that we really need the Minneapolis Fire Department. We need them for our hospitals, our research facilities, the events we hold, the accidents and the medical calls that we get on campus with 80,000 people. And we don't have a fire department, so we're relying on the Minneapolis Fire Department. I appreciate the way Chief Friedel effectively creates a professional fire department. And the credit goes to the men and women of the fire department, but also to the leadership that he gives to that organization. Specifically with hazardous materials response, Chief Friedel has been a great partner in making sure that all of our procedures are in place and that they are able to respond effectively with us to any incidents on campus. The big things that I can identify with Chief Friedel: partnership and collaboration. And I just want to say that that is why I really believe that he is one of the best fire chiefs we've ever had at the city. Finally, I think his leadership style shows the effectiveness and the public safety services that you get from the fire department. But as the director of public safety for the University of Minnesota, I know I couldn't do it without him. And today I want to say I support his reappointment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next speaker is Joe Madison.
Mr. Chair, fellow council members. My name is Joe Madison. I'm Secretary of Minneapolis Firefighters Local 82. I'm here representing Local 82, and not as myself, as a resident of the city of Minneapolis. Just a quick report. I remember last time the chief was up for appointment, we supported him fully. And we recognized some of the challenges that he had, and he's been trying to work with it. On our end, I'm proud to report that since his last appointment, we have only filed one grievance with the city of Minneapolis, with the fire department, and we ended up withdrawing that grievance. On the other end of it, at the current time, we are working with the chief on another contractual issue that we feel that over the past couple of years, we've been able to work things out in our labor management committee, and that's been a plus for us. Over the last few years, since John's become the chief of the department, we've been able to work a lot of things out in labor management without it moving any further. And I think it's benefited us and it's benefited the city. And we want to continue to work on that role. We also like to acknowledge the chief setting up a program recently for leadership training for our supervisors. And I think that was much needed. And we're looking forward to seeing some of the feedback on that. And I think that can benefit us as we're growing. We also, as a local, we support our alternative programs that we have. We like to expand that and find a real way to kind of have a pathway to the fire department. Right now, it's not there, but we need to find that. We always have been one of the most diverse departments in the country, and not of our own fault with the city of Minneapolis. We're having a tough time maintaining that now, and we need to find a way to get that done. As I said before, the chief works well with us. We're able to solve issues before they become a larger issue. And one last thing, I was asked to by the President Lukoski, who couldn't be here today, that's why I'm speaking, is that when John Friedel became chief of the department, he had one goal, and his goal was to have a staffing level of one more than St. Paul. And we still haven't reached that yet. And I hope we continue to work towards that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. We have gone through the list for the fire chief, and council members, behind the scenes, we've been working really hard to see what we could do to provide notice to the public to come in, give testimony, but also to finish these appointments within the cycle. And council member or council vice president Glidden has just recently notified me that she would allow for this continuance to go into the committee of the whole on Wednesday. That's coming up at 10 o'clock. And so we're going to do that instead of moving it to the next public safety meeting, which is 2 weeks from now. So I'm not sure if that needs a motion, but we will do that for all three of the public hearings. And Council President Johnson.
Mr. Chair, just for clarity, I think it would be helpful to have a motion. So I'm going to move that all three public hearings be continued. We'll hear everybody that's here today, but all three public hearings be continued to the committee of the whole meeting, which is next Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. Any discussion? Oh, Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to comment my appreciation for that. I think that both honors all the people here in the room as well as addresses some concerns about there being too short of notice to have people come and speak if they so feel. So thank you very much for considering that.
All right. I just want to say, we're balancing public interest of having notice and also doing it, as quick as we can. And so, at the end of the day, I'm going to take full responsibility for just this confusion and craziness. It's my fault entirely. But I think this is a good motion, and I urge my colleagues to support this. Anyone else with comments? All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. All right, so we will continue all three of these public hearings to next Wednesday at 10 a.m. at the Committee of the Whole. Okay. And so with the folks testifying for the fire chief, the list is done at this point, so we will just continue this public hearing till Wednesday of next week. Okay, we'll go on to the second item, which is the Civil Rights Director, and with that, Director Corbel.
Good afternoon, Chair Yang and committee members. My name is Velma Corbel, and I'm currently the Director in the Minneapolis Department of Civil Rights. And I am honored once again to have been nominated to this role by Mayor Betsy Hodges. And I would also like to extend thanks in advance for folks who will come up and testify in support of my nomination. When I was nominated for this role in 2014, in the mayor's first biennium, I provided remarks to this committee at that time. So in preparation for this hearing, I took a look back at those remarks to see if I had made any promises that I had not delivered on. And this is what I said at that time, that I wanted to stay in this role to complete the work of a research and study group convened to look at why predatory offenders are more frequently located in vulnerable communities in Minneapolis and what could be done about it. And we did that. And I wanted to just say for the record that as a result of the concern that the City Council had leveled about the pattern of sex offenders in Minneapolis, that the city asked us to work with the University of Minnesota's Urban Research and Outreach Engagement Center, UROC, to convene and facilitate an action research team, and we did that. We produced a report. We presented that report to this committee and also to the Hennepin County Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee, and the recommendations from that study are also being used to create the city's legislative agenda. So the Government Relations Office in the city has those recommendations at this time. So 2 years ago, I also said that I wanted to stick around to complete work started under my leadership to acquire a single compliance solution for contract compliance. And I wanted this team, this committee to know that over the last several months, my team in the Civil Rights Department conducted a feasibility analysis, created an RFP, advertised for vendors, interviewed vendors, and were ready to begin negotiations with a preferred vendor when we learned that the department would not be receiving money through the capital budget process to complete the purchase. But all was not lost because all the groundwork has been laid so that when we put that request forward in the next budget cycle to acquire that compliance system, the team has already done all of that work. I also said that I wanted to stick around because I wanted to make sure that the work started on an equitable procurement process would happen that would allow for greater access to contracts by women and minority firms. Now, soon after I made those remarks, the city leadership placed the responsibility for enterprise equitable procurement under the purview of the city coordinator. Nevertheless, under my leadership in the Civil Rights Department, we created a regional best practices roundtable to equip Twin Cities contracting practitioners and procurement staff with the tools needed to fulfill their responsibility to include women and minorities, not just as small businesses in procurement opportunities across the region, but also as workers on government contracts. That roundtable includes the Minnesota Department of Administration, the Minnesota Department of Human Rights, the Minnesota Department of Transportation, Minnesota Management and Budget, the Minnesota Sports Facilities Authority, the Metropolitan Airports Commission, the Metropolitan Council, Hennepin County, Ramsey County, the Minneapolis Parks and Recreation Board, Minneapolis Public Housing Authority, the City of St. Paul, and the University of Minnesota. In addition to that, just in 2015, through the fourth quarter, of $118 million worth of construction contracts monitored in the city.
Could you wrap it up?
The Civil Rights Department made sure that almost $14 million went to minority-owned and women-owned business enterprises, and also about $140 million worth of construction contracts monitored. 25% of the hours worked on those projects went to women and minorities. I also said at that time that we wanted to create an equity and inclusion plan on target center renovation that would be a model for equity and inclusion plans on all priority projects. And we've done that over the last 2 years. We talked about work in the Office of Police Conduct Review relative to coaching. We had talked about some early work with body cameras. We'd also talked about greater community outreach to engage the community more in community policing. And all of the things that we talked about in 2014, when I was nominated for this role, we've done that, including the Office of Police Conduct Review and the Police Conduct Oversight Commission, using coaching as one of the tools to make sure that issues complained about don't escalate into more egregious misconduct. We have had multiple listening sessions in the community to talk about the body camera policy, to bring those recommendations back to the City Council. So all of the things that I talked about in 2014, we've done, but we've also gone about doing the daily work in the Civil Rights Department with a team of people that I am privileged to work with. They are capable, they are talented, and they are smart. And I wanted to acknowledge them. Many of them are in the room this afternoon, and I don't get a chance very often to say thank you and to say how much I appreciate them, but I do. So all of the things I promised the council and this committee that I would do in 2014, I've done. And there are a lot of other things left that we need to do in this city. The fact is, I won't be able to finish those if I'm not here. So I want to thank the mayor again for her nomination. I look forward to working with the city and this council over the next 2 years, and I would be privileged to be the city civil rights director once again. Thank you very much.
Council members, any questions? All right, Madam Mayor, I didn't get a chance to allow you to do the introduction. It was muscle memory the first time you weren't here. Here you go.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate being able to speak in your committee in whatever order and whatever point at your discretion. And I do want to speak in favor of the nomination of Velma Corbel. She has done great work in the city. She inherited, when she first started here, a tough situation. And she worked very hard to make sure that the department was focused on its mission, its enforcement mission, and that it was doing its job and doing it well. And she made some changes that have improved the outcomes. I know that 2 years ago, when we were having this conversation, there were concerns raised about her work and about her management. And I can attest that she has done a great job responding to those concerns personally and professionally, and work inside the department has gone very, very well. And I appreciate very much the leadership she has shown, both as a manager and as someone leading enforcement issues in the city, and who has an eye on the prize of equity for the city of Minneapolis. She has taken on some challenging duties. You know, the outcomes for some of the new processes that there are in civil rights under her leadership as we move forward from what we had before to what we have now are good and increasingly good. I will just put in a note for the Urban Scholars Project, something that the Civil Rights Department hasn't had to do, but under Ms. Corbel's leadership has helped create a new opportunity for college students, particularly college students of color, to get job and professional experience that they would not have otherwise had through our Urban Scholars Program. And many of those urban scholars are still working at the city or other places where they have been employed. So I am asking the committee for your support for the reappointment of Velma Corbel for Civil Rights Director, and appreciate your consideration.
All right, so with that, we will open up the public hearing, and our first speaker is Don Allen.
My name is Don Allen. I live in Columbia Heights, and I do business and teach in Minneapolis. Hello, Council President Johnson and Chairman Yang. The bullet points we heard are challenging, to say the least. The Minneapolis Department of Civil Rights needs a disciplined, data-driven approach for eliminating its defects. The internal and external organizational design lacks integrity and has moved away from simple perfection. I am in support of the appointment or the reappointment of Ms. Corbell. And I'm not here today that she's not here today to say that she should not be reappointed, but I'm here today to say there needs to be a different approach to civil rights. Using a time management system pinned with a list of objectives should be designed, publicized, expanded upon. For the city's sake, the TMS must be put in place to demand the highest performance out of this agency. As some of you already know, data tables show that unemployment in regards to the population of Minneapolis in some cases exceed 40% for certain zip codes. I maintain the Minneapolis Department of Civil Rights and its neglect to contract compliance are partly to blame for this unacceptable and surreptitious promotion of structural violence. For me, the solution or fundamental objective would be to remove the malfeasance of process from the daily operations of the department and replace it with a user-friendly, results-driven community and city engagement. This would build a framework for implementing and enforcing civil rights investigations and for sure addressing the list of solutions from the October 2010 City of Minneapolis Disparity Report, which out of the 350 pages that I read, not one item has been implemented since 2010. There are no self-updates, there are no bug fixes. Ms. Corbell must be reappointed because she now needs to be a problem solver and fix the Minneapolis Department of Civil Rights. Thank you for your time.
All right, the next speaker is Daniel Wolpert.
My name is Daniel Wolpert, and Chair, President, Mayor, thank you very much for allowing me here today. I'm a resident of South Minneapolis. And I want to just say a few things because I have a great concern about this particular nomination, the particular processes that are happening in this committee, in this organization, particularly with regards to the issue of policing. And that's really what I want to speak to. So I'm coming up before you as an old white guy. And as an old white guy, I'm the one for whom the entire system of policing and criminal justice is supposed to work. And this is a 350-year karmic and institutional legacy that actually began in a chamber much like this in the colony of Virginia in the 1680s when they passed a law that created the notion of whiteness. And when they did that, they then went into churches, and as a pastor, I'm particularly offended by this. They went into churches and required that the laws be read that indicated that white people had more rights and more chance for freedom than black people did. And this legacy is still very much with us. And as somebody that grew up in Los Angeles, I was born 5 years before the Watts riots, riots that tore the city apart and were started by the shooting of an unarmed black person by the Los Angeles Police Department. The issues that we see today are absolutely nothing new. And it's very challenging when we're always looking at, one person or one nomination or one situation. It's very difficult, particularly for us as Americans, to get our mind around systemic problems. But I really feel like we need to get better and better at this. And I feel like it is very important whether this person is re-upped for this job, whether the chief is re-upped for her job. I think it's very, very important that at all levels of government, we insist upon addressing what is not a one bad apple problem or a two bad apple problem, but is an entire problem of a system.
Mr. Wolpert, I'm so sorry, I forgot to start the timer, but
okay.
I
Well,
do need to ask you to
I'm
wrap
almost
up.
done.
Thank you.
Okay. I was looking at that, I was thinking I was very lucky, perhaps. Maybe we'd been frozen in time. So that is simply what I'm interested in encouraging you as a committee to think about and the council to think about. Is again, regardless of the individuals that are in some of these situations, how can we get very serious in this city as an example, and every city in America needs to be doing this. How can we get very serious about addressing some fundamental structural inequalities that will not go away until we become very clear about their problems and begin to be equally clear about some solutions. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michelle Gross.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair Yang, President Johnson, and Mayor Hodges. My name is Michelle Gross, and I live in Ward 5, North Minneapolis, and Wong Yang is my council member, I'm proud to say. And I am also the president of the organization Communities United Against Police Brutality. I'm specifically interested in speaking about Ms. Corbell and her leadership and some of the things that have occurred during her term. I have to tell you that I am not in favor of reappointment of Ms. Corbell, largely because of what's happened with the Office of Police Conduct Review. The Office of Police Conduct Review was her construct. She developed it. It was developed in secret. It was foisted on the community it was used to destroy the civilian review process. And now we have a process that has 5 layers, all 5 of which are controlled by the police or by city staff. Under this particular process, Office of Police Conduct Review, which is the only place community members can bring their complaints about policing to the city, under that process, we've had now in the almost 3.5 years, about 1,100 complaints, and not one single complaint by a community member has been disciplined. Not a single one in 3.5 years out of nearly 1,100 complaints. This is a highly problematic agency. The agency is clearly not working. They like to talk quite often, and she spoke again today about how great it is to send all the things to coaching. Well, here's the deal about coaching, folks. Coaching is about not disciplining officers, because when an officer is disciplined, the complaint against that officer and all aspects of it become public data. When you don't discipline an officer, even if the complaint is sustained, if it's not disciplined, much of the data about that complaint is non-public. And that was the whole scam in the very beginning. And I call it a scam. Yes. In fact, what we find when we examine what we can get out of the complaints through the PCOC is that often B, C, and D level complaints on the police disciplinary matrix are sent to coaching and counseling. And these are deeply inappropriate complaints to be coached and counseled. When we don't have discipline, what we have is Jamar Clark. When we don't have discipline, what we have is Terrence Franklin. When we don't have discipline, what we have is all the day-to-day complaints that people have about poor quality policing in this community. It is a huge concern. And so I speak here today to ask you to think hard about this. Now, here's the thing about this process. This is not an up or down process. You don't have to vote yes and no. You can say yes, but we have some things we want to see fixed. You did that last time with her appointment. You can do that again. You did it with the appointment of Chief Dolan. You could do that again. You could say, we need a new process. Why is this process so flawed? Why have no complaints out of 1,100 complaints from community members in 3.5 years not been sustained? It's a huge problem, and I ask you to do what you can as a committee to fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gross, Mr. Allen, and Mr. Wolpert, we see that you didn't sign in with your address on the city clerk sheet, so we do need you to give your address to the city clerk before you leave. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dave Bicking.
Thank you. I'm Dave Bicking, 4200 Cedar Avenue South in Minneapolis. I want to thank you for continuing the hearing. I wish it were for 2 weeks from now instead of 1. As a result, I'm going to reserve my time to speak to the substance of this appointment for the later time when I can be more prepared and when there's time to submit written remarks as well. I think in the meantime, however, possibly we could get answers to a couple of questions in that time, because there were conditions set upon Velma Corbell's reappointment 2 years ago. In particular, it's here that report back to the executive committee in about 6 months. Actually, it was 3 months that time, and report back about the progress of consulting with AFSCME representatives about the management of the department, and to work to improve management practices. I understand a management consultant was hired by the city from outside to help with that management. I checked back after that time had expired, and I recall that I was told that, well, no, actually nothing was ever reported back and nothing was followed up. So I'd like to ask before the next hearing that we could have questions to, how long did that counseling go on? What did that cost? Is it still going on? I certainly hope that that's not still needed. And like to ask what were the results of the lawsuits that people talked about that were in progress at the time of the hearing 2 years ago. So there's more time for this than you seem to feel with the rush. Last time, the executive committee didn't act until February 13th. The Public Safety Committee, at its next meeting 2 weeks later, set the time for a public hearing, which was March 19th, 3 weeks later. So 5 weeks between the executive committee and the committee action, and the appointment wasn't official till the council meeting on March 28th. I would like to see something a little more approaching your previous practice in terms of notice. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Pam Costain.
Good afternoon, Chair Lang, President Johnson, members of the committee. My name is Pam Costain. I live in the 8th Ward, 3952 12th Avenue South, and I'm here to speak in favor of Ms. Corbell's reappointment as the Commissioner of Civil Rights. I've known Ms. Corbell now for many years, particularly as in the community as she serves on the board of Achieve Minneapolis, where I'm the CEO. And in that capacity, I've gotten to know her commitments and perhaps most importantly, her character. I am here to testify that Ms. Corbell acts with integrity in all things, with transparency in all things, and demands accountability not only of herself, of her department, but also of the organizations that she chooses to affiliate, such as Achieve Minneapolis. So I heartily recommend her reappointment. And also, as the mayor has mentioned, as the organization that works with Step Up, I'm delighted to work with this department and her in the alignment of urban scholars with the Step Up program. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Claudio Rivera.
Good afternoon, Chair, President, Mayor. My name is Claudio Rivera. I'm at 3222 DuPont Avenue North, and I'm here today to speak in opposition of the reappointment of the director, mostly to echo the concerns of the community. Generally, that something is wrong. Something is wrong at every level, and so, in my opinion, everyone's got to go. And that's the chief, and I'm sorry, the mayor and the director. There's a huge problem, and it's not being addressed. Yeah, I'll keep it real brief. I'll just keep it at that. I think everyone's got to go because I believe Black Lives Matter, and we need to get justice for Jamar. So thank you.
Our next speaker is Tony Newborn.
Good afternoon. My address is 1101 Main Street Northeast. Good afternoon, Council President Johnson, Mayor Hodges, Chair Yang. I'm back just temporarily, hailing from the city of St. Paul. I am proud to say that I am a former employee of the Civil Rights Department working directly under the leadership of Director Corbell. I'm not a litigant. I'm not a former complainant. I'm not a former or current litigant. I am proud to say that I'm a former employee of Director Corbell. And I worked under her for almost six years at the Civil Rights Department as an investigator and also the assistant director. So I was a part of her leadership team. I am in support of her nomination and appointment to this position again. My experience with Director Corbell has been that she is tough, but I think that's why you hired her. That's why you appointed her, is that she's a tough leader, but she gets things done. She has integrity. She's diligent. She's motivated. She's passionate about the work that she's doing. And I'm proud to say that I was an employee of hers and I left on good terms. And I support her appointment and nomination as director of the Civil Rights Department. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Don Samuels.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and the committee. Can't believe you guys are still here. It's good to see you. It's a sight for sore eyes. And also, Madam Chair, it's great to be here, especially for a great cause to support Velma Corbell for reappointment as Civil Rights Director. Probably the person who would relate to what I'm saying next is Council President Johnson, because she was here for the years and years where we had one after the other director for the Civil Rights Department with failed attempts to get it in shape, to make it accountable and effective. I was here for those. We hired people after searches, recommendations, processes. It didn't work. And Velma was, I guess, the second person who was able to make this department functional and healthy. I tell you, it was a wonderful thing at City Hall when the department, which was designed to protect the rights of our citizens, finally came in line with the kind of functionality that our other departments had. Because Velma is responsible, she's accountable, she is effective and efficient. She hires great people, whether it be Michael Brown, who is now a judge, or Tony Newborn, who is now doing the same work in St. Paul. Young people who rose to the level of their potential and served the city well. And, there's a stadium going on up over somewhere around here, which was controversial. But one of the conditions that was placed on its construction was that it had hired people to the level of the availability of the marketplace, which was assessed to be at 31%. And guess what? They're making that standard for the first time in the history of the city of Minneapolis. Such a large construction project has been hiring so many minority people. And the Wells Fargo project, and from now on going forward, the developer of that project also is saying that from now on they will rise to that level. It all rests on the work that was done and pioneered by Velma Corbell to bring the study into a city to demonstrate that there was a large minority workforce that was being underemployed. That's just a couple of the things I can say about Velma. Others have said, and we'll say more. But personally, such a person of strong character, and so much so that she's become my friend. And the first one always goes first with me. Thank you.
All right. Well, with that, we have completed our list, and so we will. Councilmember Gordon.
So I wanted to make a comment, and it occurred to me that because of their change in timeline and our change in plan, actually this committee probably won't even be voting on these issues. So that sort of changed my perspective of how I was going to approach the meeting. And I did want to make a little comment about this appointment. I know that we had a lot of discussion about it last time, and I was supportive of it with some reservations. And I just wanted to note that I'm also supportive. And my intention, had I had the opportunity to vote on the fire chief, would have been to vote in favor of a recommendation for that as well. I do think that some of the issues that came up last time having to do with morale in the department and those things were addressed. I'll have to look back and see if the executive committee actually got a report. I know that I got a briefing on some of the training. I know that I saw some of the reviews. I know there was some actual executive coaching that occurred. And from the way that I'm kind of reading the department and the change in leadership that's there, is that right now it's much more functional. Morale is up compared to maybe where it had been. And I think that real progress has been made there in terms of the management, which I'm very impressed with and I'm glad about. I do have a lingering gripe because one of the stipulations last time the reappointment occurred was that a labor management team would be formed, or a labor management committee would be formed. We heard in some testimony about the fire department how positive that has been and how that has really worked well. My understanding is it has not been formed in civil rights. They've developed some teams and staff leadership and empowerment and great stuff. But I do think there could be a valuable role to play if there was actually that labor management team, and I just couldn't pass up this opportunity to bring that up again. And I'm sure Ms. Corbell has heard me talk about this and knows it's a lingering, nagging issue that I still have. So thanks for letting me at least speak at this time in this committee, and now maybe I won't have to say it again in committee of the whole or the full council.
Or you can say it again at
I
committee
might
of the whole.
repeat it.
Yes. All right. Well, with that, we've completed our list for the reappointment of Director Corbell, and so we will move on to the third public hearing, which is the Chief of Police, Chief Janae Hartel. And with that, you know, I'm going to forget muscle memory and have the mayor do the introduction first before we bring up the chief. So, Chief, if you can hold tight for a little bit, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you again for letting me speak in your committee. In September, I made clear my intention to put up Chief Janae Hartel's name for reappointment to police chief for the city of Minneapolis. And I recommend her today without hesitation and without reservation. And in the time subsequent to September, my support for her has only grown. She has a balancing act to do in the 21st century, that it is still important that police departments fight crime, solve crime, investigate crime, and protect the public safety and the public good. Law enforcement is still important. But in the 21st century, we also know that how we enforce law, how we protect public safety is important, and that for whom is important, that there be no question that we do it for everyone, and that our department is designed for everyone. And so on the public safety front, there have been year-over-year reductions in crime in so many areas under Chief Hartel's leadership. Where there have been increases, some of those geographic, some of those in category of crime, she has put together mechanisms to address them that are distinct and tailored to the problem at hand. She's had solutions. Community policing has been incredibly important, one of those solutions as one way to fight crime. Agency partnerships with the state, with the sheriff's office, with the U of M police, with Metro Transit. Across the board, those partnerships have been incredibly important. The initiative regarding violent offenders who commit a disproportionate number of crimes, that investigating violent offenses in particular can help reduce crime overall. That all of those are significant and forward-thinking ways of doing law enforcement and protecting public safety. But at the same time, in the 21st century, matters of community police relations are and should be front of mind and front of policy and front of work for every police department in this country. And Janae Hartel knew that and knows that long before the national conversation was as heated as it currently is. That she already 2 years ago went and found a way to make sure that for critical incidents we could have an independent investigation right away. There was some controversy around that, but she went and did it anyway. It's a rather unheard of thing to do, or used to be an unheard of thing for police departments to do. Now it should be standard operating procedure as far as I'm concerned, but she knew that a long time ago. And so when we had a critical incident, we had an independent investigation right away in advance with the BCA, and that was even before the request for the federal investigation. She brought in the Office of Justice Programs to make recommendations about what an early intervention system would look like, so that if officers are struggling, if officers are showing sign of having difficulty, that we could be alerted to that right away, and that we would have mechanisms in place to help those officers stay on a good path before they had strayed onto a not good path. Juvenile justice reform issues, whatever we like to call those. Our Juvenile Supervision Center is something across the country that people look at. The fact that we have ways to intervene with young people before we put them into the criminal justice system for things like status offenses, et cetera. If they go to the Juvenile Supervision Center, they get an assessment of what help, what assistance they might need, and then we have ways to get them that assistance. Home first, before taking people down, before booking them in jail somewhere, take kids home, take them to the Juvenile Supervision Center. This is one way that we have to make sure that our system is dealing with young people as young people, which is incredibly important. And she and I together eagerly looked for the opportunity to participate in the National Initiative for Building Community Trust and Justice, understanding that the relationship between the police department and the community has to be strong, both on moral grounds and on public safety grounds, and that the National Initiative for Building Community Trust and Justice is 6 cities across the country who are doing focused work on making sure that we have the most positive relationship possible between the police and the community in the most genuine and real way possible. We are participants in the national initiative, but we do not run the national initiative. They come in and they work with us. They work with the community to find ways that we can move forward together. And in that spirit, I had put in the budget, you all voted for, which I appreciate, dollars to make sure that we could do training that was recommended by the National Initiative on Procedural Justice. That will be happening next week. This is some of the first of the kind in the entire country that we are having our entire department go through this training, and that's under the leadership of Chief Janae Harteau. And finally, just yesterday, she and I asked for an after-action review of how the city responded to the occupation of the police 4th precinct. You know, she has said, I have said, we stand behind the city on that, but if there are places, and we stand behind our officers on that, but if there are places that we could have done better, we need to know that as well. And so asking somebody else, asking the COPS office to come in, do an after-action review to see what we did well, what we could have done better will be good for us, it'll be good for the community, and it will be good for people across the country to see and to learn from our successes and from our mistakes both. All of this she has done while making sure that her officers understand that she supports them. All of this is not in contradiction to wanting to make sure officers are supported, making sure that we have the best possible 21st century police force. Incredibly important that people are supported, and incredibly important for public safety. I will say this, one of the first things she did when she became chief was institute MPD 2.0, which is premised on the idea that officers leave every interaction asking themselves, is this how I want, is this how I would have wanted a member of my family to be treated? And that the expectation is that the answer should be yes to that question. And she has organized her department, she has organized her leadership, she has organized her training, she has organized her policy around that question. And that is the sign of a leader, and that is the sign of a 21st century police chief and a 21st century leader. And so I ask without hesitation and without reservation that you support the reappointment of Chief Janae Harteau for Minneapolis Police Chief.
Chief Harteau.
Good afternoon. I was not aware I got to speak today, so I will be brief, but thank you, Mayor. I think that the Mayor has really recapped the last 3 years pretty well. I will say this month I begin my 30th year with the police department. And during that time, I have built relationships and done a lot of listening, frankly. And when I became chief, we began a long journey of transformational change. And it starts from the inside out. And that is 2.0. That is ensuring that officers do look at that guiding principle and every member of this department and ask themselves, did my actions reflect how a family member of mine should be treated? And when that answer is no, then there are consequences for those actions. Sometimes that's training, sometimes that's discipline, and sometimes it's termination. And our core values, commitment, integrity, and transparency, ensuring that those are our guiding values as a department and as a city. And so we have spent the last 3 years in that transformational change. And I will tell you that change, as I think most of us know, is inevitable. But progress is not. Progress is intentional. And I am so proud of this department and this city with the progress we've made. Building relationships, bringing in the Office of Justice programs to do an independent review, working with a national initiative, working with the Department of Justice, having a seat at the table at the forefront, as the mayor said, of 21st century policing. I'm honored and humbled to stand before you today and tell you we just got started. This is the beginning. This is when the real work happens, and I believe we have all the right people at the table. Those at the police department, all of you, and those in this community are the right people at the table, and the time is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. With that, we will open up the public hearing. And the first speaker is Adrian Thompson.
Good afternoon, committee. My name is Adrian Thompson. I'm a resident of the south side of Minneapolis. I work for the Council on Crime and Justice, a volunteer advocate, mental advocate for the youth. But, you know, I've heard some testimony from the mayor and the police chief, and just reminds me that, you know, we've lost sight of the most basic principle, which is to protect and serve. I heard what amounted to me was a bunch of mumbo jumbo. I didn't hear anything that reflected anything about the elephant that's in the room, the elephant that's in Minneapolis, the elephant that's in the country, about police misconduct. Is anyone aware of that? Police brutality, police killing unarmed men over and over again with overwhelmingly graphic evidence. I heard the chief talk about consequences. Are we talking about the same subject? And you know, that in closing, you know, what's symbolic of this divide is what happened after the occupation of the 4th precinct, is when the police put up barricades, concrete and fence barricade that was symbolic, how it separated the precinct from the community. So I'm speaking in opposition of the reappointment. We need a police chief that has the courage to hold their fellow officers accountable. I'm sure Fong Lee and Jamal Clark would be opposed.
All right, the next speaker is Lisa Clemens.
Good afternoon. It's an honor to be here. I'm here in support of Police Chief Janae Hartough. I have never attended one of these to support a chief, so that should tell you something about me. I came in the department in 1987, and I was assigned to the 4th Precinct, North Minneapolis, on the same shift as the chief. She has never shied away from conflict or making unpopular decisions, and she has shown that through every level of her career, all the way up to the police chief. She inherited a department that has resisted change for more than 50 years. She has openly promised reform, even though some may want to resist that. The community's level of distrust should not be ignored. But change does not come overnight. Reform will not come overnight. But this chief is not afraid to do that. I left the department after 13 years because I didn't believe anybody recognized that there was a problem in the Minneapolis Police Department, not just the relationships with the community, but the relationships with its own officers, especially Black officers. This chief has opened her door to the Justice Department to come in and take a look. There's no secrets now. That's never been done by any chief in Minneapolis. From that, she created 5 committees. She opened the door for everybody to join any committee you wanted to be on. She didn't handpick everybody. She handpicked some, and I'm very thankful to you, for picking me to be a part of that team, even though she knows I have a big mouth. She has hired more officers of color than any chief before her. And she knows that there's a lot more work to do there. I call her constantly, text message her constantly, you need to do better. And I expect that she will do better. One of the things that I would say as a criticism is that this group needs to address your human resources department, because that is something that's blocking her from making change. And I disagree that she hasn't addressed police brutality. If you listen to it, you're seeing that you want her to say, I'm addressing police brutality. She is saying that through the different things that she's doing, through the terminations that she has made, she is saying that. But I urge you to reappoint her and give her an opportunity to continue the great work.
Thank you. The next speaker, and the handwriting is a little bit off, but I think it's R.A. Edwards, but it could be R.A. something. So I think it is Mr. Edwards. Apologies.
Once again, good afternoon. Again, my pleasure to speak before the committee. Mr. Chairman, Council President Johnson, members. Again, I applaud the Chief Executive of the city, the mayor, in her decision to affirm. I first began to understand the importance of a chief of police or chief constable, however you want to refer to them. Basically, chief constable, you'd have to be in Canada or England. When I was a sophomore in high school in 1954, I guess I'm telling my age. As a young African American, I understood relationships. No one needs to tell me about relationships between community and law enforcement. I understood that. I learned a lot, and I've seen a lot of chiefs come and go. As I said with regards to the fire department, I've seen some that were outstanding. I've seen some that left a lot to be desired. I have my own checklist. As one who has been involved in the social arena since 1957, when I decided to get involved rather than to just sit around and complain. I have a list of 3 of what I consider to be the most outstanding chiefs in my lifetime of the Minneapolis Police Department. One is somebody that probably dates all of you, and that was the legendary and late Elmer Nordland. The second is Chief Janae Harto. The third was Chief McManus. I had the opportunity to work with them. We may not have always agreed, but they were there, they were available, and they were committed. This chief is a visionary. She can't do everything for everybody. I'd like to see her be perfect. I'd like to be perfect. We'd all like to be perfect. As the previous speaker said, that we are looking at a situation in which police reform is one of the toughest elements in this society. I still await in the 77th year of my life for that perfectionist which will walk down the path and provide to us the necessary answer to reform in the institution and the arena of public safety. I applaud this chief for taking on this responsibility with integrity, honesty, and an understanding that she cannot be all things to all people. I repeat again, we would love to be perfectionists. She is doing what she needs to do. She is doing what she has to do. And hopefully, with the blessing and confirmation of the committee and the mayor, she will be able to establish her place in history as having changed some things that the previous speaker talked about. This is an institution, the NPD, that has resisted change for longer than 50 years. For longer than 50 years. I applaud you, Chief Harto, and God bless you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Chief Matt Clark.
Mr. Chair and committee members, once again, I just want to say that representing the University of Minnesota Police Department, I support Chief Harto's reappointment. Like the Minneapolis Fire Department, we need the Minneapolis Police Department and their partnership, and Chief Harto is very effective in leading that partnership and ensuring that we have that at the university. One small fact I'll give you is that we have 52,000 students. That's the sixth largest campus enrollment in the nation. And many of those students live in neighborhoods surrounding the campus. Without her community policing focus, without her collaboration and responsiveness, we wouldn't be able to do what we need to do on and off campus to keep those students safe. I know that you have lots of facts and evidence to go over and reports that you received from the police department concerning their effectiveness and what they're working on. I know because you've given me those staff assignments and I've had to carry those out. So I won't go over the facts. I think you have plenty of those on what has been achieved by the Minneapolis Police Department under Chief Artaud, but I will talk to her skills and her character. First, I know that she's a leader, not only locally but nationally, and that national leadership is reflective on what she does at the MPD and within the city. And it's a very much a important part of her focus. I know she thinks globally, but she's also very in tune to what's going on in the communities, and she acts on a very community-based level. I know she believes in balancing public safety and constitutional rights, and it's a very tough balance, but she does it very effectively. And she also believes that she has to stay attuned to current events, but also what each individual community needs within the city of Minneapolis. Another item that I think is a great skill of hers is she takes a lot of criticism, more than I can think of any political leader in the city, a great deal of it. And I've seen from the front row that she doesn't lose faith in what she wants to do and what she wants to accomplish. You talked a lot about reform, talked a lot about current events. She has not lost faith in where she wants to go with this police department and what she wants to get done. And finally, I think what's most important is behind closed doors, because I've been there. What she says behind closed doors is what she says publicly, and that's how she acts. If you're looking for additional changes to the police department, if you're looking for things you need to get done, or if current events change, when the chief says she's going to get that done, she will do it, and she'll be effective at doing that. Thank you.
The next speaker is Chief John Harrington.
Mr. Council, my name is John Harrington. I'm Chief of Police for Metro Transit. 3 years ago, when Chief Hartaud came in, she was my first stop as a new chief for Metro Transit. I teach community policing all over the country, and I can tell you that there are 3 components to good community policing. There's partnerships, there's organizational change, and there's problem solving. And I can tell you that the Minneapolis Police Department, under Chief Hartaud's watch, has done all 3 at an outstanding level. I have watched the partnerships develop between my department and her department, and I've watched crime drop through the transit system and in areas that, frankly, where it was really more on my watch than it was in Minneapolis's. I have never seen her or her staff shirk from stepping forward and taking the heavy load when we've needed to, whether that was special events, whether that was downtown the warehouse district, whether that was in Lake Street. Every time we've needed a partner, I have not had to look very far other than simply look over to Chief Hartaud and know that I'm going to have that. Organizational change is a really tough thing to do in police departments. We're departments that were created to keep the status quo, quite frankly, historically. That was what police departments were created to do. And so when you come in as a change agent in a police department, you know you're bucking the tide. You know that you're going to be facing strong historical and cultural opposition. And yet what I've seen from Chief Hartaud is with MPD 2.0, recently attended one of her graduations and was just overwhelmed by the sentiment of creating a department full of guardians. In a world where oftentimes police officers are trained and positioned to be the warriors, what she is talking about is old-fashioned community policing, good beat work, where what you really want are officers that are guardians of the public safety and guardians of the Constitution. Finally, in problem solving, once again, I think that the facts speak for themselves. Crime is down. Property crimes are down. In many communities, violent crime is down. And what we've seen through that is her ability to work collaboratively in creating good problem-solving projects. The Somali Police Project that we recently embarked on at MTPD couldn't have happened without the support of Chief Harto, her staff, and frankly, as I recently talked to the chief of police from Somalia. What happens in Somalia, the things that are good that are happening in Somalia are oftentimes reflective of the good things that are happening here. I am very strongly in support of Chief Harto's reappointment, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Shane Zahn.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm Shane Zahn with the Minneapolis Downtown Improvement District. I'm here to support Chief Harto's reappointment. I was enrolled with Target Corporation on a Safe City initiative back in 2007 to help on public and private safety strategies. Little did I know what I was getting into. I didn't know much about community policing, but I'll tell you what, I've learned so much from Chief Harto on what public and private collaboration efforts are. Whether it's youth violence prevention strategies or looking at livability issues, Chief Harto has been there as an inspector, as a chief. She has pulled community members. I've learned so much from her. We've had a lot of accomplishments downtown, and a lot of that infrastructure is because of her leadership and her commitment. I'm here again to know that we have a lot of work to do, and Chief Harto is the right person to get it done. I've been there for close to 8 years with Chief Harto and different strategies that we have, and I'm very honored when we have police departments throughout the country that come visit us here in Minneapolis to see what we do on public safety. And one of the biggest things I take away is look at our public and private collaboration efforts that we have in our city. Bar none, I think it's some of the best we have in the country. So thank you.
The next speaker is Gwen Gunter. Okay. All right. Then following that, it's Michelle Gross.
Committee members and Chair Yang, thank you again for allowing me to speak. I did want to mention something that I failed to mention the first time, which is to thank you for continuing this hearing to the next committee of the whole meeting. I would have rather have been continued to the next public safety committee meeting, but this is a good compromise, and at least it does give people a week's opportunity to come here and to be prepared and to give you good comments that are hopefully beneficial to you. So thank you for that. I do appreciate that. Again, with Chief Harto, I do want to say this. Our organization is not actually opposed to the reappointment of the chief, and in fact, it seems that it's a foregone conclusion that it will happen. But again, as before, you don't have to always do approvals as just up or down votes. You can ask for things. And one of the things that we have a great concern about is, again, the OPCR. Ms. Corbel is one piece of that equation, but Chief Harto is the other piece of the equation. It's a tag team. I recognize that Chief Harto has terminated some employees who were engaged in misconduct in, say, a drunk driving incident in Wisconsin that was reported by a police officer, things like that. But we still have not seen any discipline of police that is reflective of community complaints. I also want to raise the issue of the handling of the 4th Precinct encampment, as well as the handling of the Terrence Franklin and Jamar Clark cases. Both of these are problematic cases. They're cases that capture the visions of the community, or the imaginations of the community, and have been been of great concern. We have seen little to no transparency in either one of those cases. We're not particularly encouraged by the fact that the one case was investigated, the Clark case, by the BCA, because we don't have a lot of faith in them either. But there has been little to no transparency, and the handling at the 4th Precinct was frankly atrocious. I recognize that is not all on Chief Harto. I recognize that some of this most surely came from the city's executive, but nonetheless, the kind of rapid shutdown of the encampment, the pointing guns at people, including some members on this council, the walling up of the 4th Precinct. At one night I was there, for example, and some young kids basically were playing on the side in an abandoned lot on the side street, and police went into the back parking lot of the 4th precinct and held guns on those kids. And these kids were not doing anything that threatened the police in any way. This is appalling conduct. I took a number of witness statements. This is, again, appalling conduct. You know, we haven't seen a real transparency, and we haven't seen any transparency around the treatment of police in the community after the Jamar Clark shooting, which was equally appalling, in which they went in and stole cell phones from people, told people you better not tell what you saw here or the same thing's going to happen to you, this kind of stuff. There's been no investigation of this whatsoever, and referring all these people for coaching and counseling is not going to get it. We need real, consequences for bad behavior, and then that way we can build some trust with the community. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Dominic Boza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam President, good to see you. Council members, Ms. Mayor. My name is Dominic Boza. I live 4215 Portland South. I work in downtown Minneapolis for a large homeless shelter. I am in support of Janae Harto's reappointment. I've known her since 1995 when our city was dubbed Minneapolis, and the horrors that we were seeing back then, citizen on citizen. Obviously, things have gone better in that way, but there's certainly a long way to go. I wanted to say two things that I know about Janae. The first is, for 17 years, and this is after working with her in Chicago and Franklin, I've been trying to get some sort of avenue to get better result for the homeless and the poor who are arrested for misdemeanors and small crimes, instead of just sticking them in jail, running them through the system, and just going through that over and over again, and not addressing chemical dependency or mental health issues. With her support in 2009, along with prosecution, the city prosecutors, we were able to come together as a community, and I think that's the only way we're to succeed at anything we do around here is if we do this all together. It brought in social service agencies, brought in the police, prosecution, probation, and together we were able to come up with solutions on an individual basis, the majority of whom were African American, and saw a great change in their lives. I've studied a lot of experiments dealing with sanctions on recidivism, and typically, and this is the case today as it was when I was doing this 10 years ago, is that if you have any program, if you have a 10% return on your dollar, you're doing excellent. With the downtown court watch and the support of the Minneapolis Police Department, we're seeing a 70% reduction in the crimes that these guys are committing over a 6-year period. Dramatic, real change, real good. The other thing was, and this is where I'll get probably some booze, is not only was my father the one who commissioned the 4th precinct, I appreciated the way that the chief handled that in the end. I was up there. To me, it was an occupational army. I think there were certain, regardless of the issues which need to be addressed, not necessarily by the police department, probably should be more directed to the legislature. But I thought that the right thing to do was to minimize injury, and the way the operation was eliminated in the middle of the night, eliminated those injuries to anybody who could have been hurt in the way. And I wanted to say that the chief is responsible for protecting life and property. And in that case, I think she did do that. So I just want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Dave Bicking.
Hi, I'm Dave Picking, 4200 Cedar Avenue, Minneapolis. Again, I would like to reserve the substance of my comments for next week. I think with this poor notice of this hearing, the damage to credibility of this committee and the executive committee has already been done. It's tone deaf, considering that it comes just 2 months after hundreds of people were protesting and many of them were calling for the resignation or firing of the chief. Under those conditions, you should at least give the kind of notice that you have in the past. By continuing for just 1 week with this unusual and unnecessary haste, there is also the unusual situation where the Public Safety Committee is giving up its duty to consider, debate, discuss, and actually vote on these appointments, which are one of your most important roles as a committee. You have just deferred this because there seems to be that much haste that it can't be put off for 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Adriana Cirillo.
Good afternoon. I have to say that I get very nervous speaking in public, so bear with me. Actually, I serve with the Police Conduct Oversight Commission, and I've been serving in that commission for the last year. And I have to say just one thing. This last year has been a learning experience for me, going from Robert's rules and all the procedures, that we have to learn to be effective. So it has been a great opportunity for me to serve in that commission. But I do feel that we haven't really have a voice at the table. We haven't really been able to communicate very well with the leaders. I am not in here to support or not support the chief's reappointment. I think she has done an incredible job, but we have a long way to go. And one of the duties that we have as a commission is that we must contribute to the performance review of the chief, and we have not done so. So when you talk about credibility, building better relationships with the community, as a commissioner, I have the responsibility to say that we have done everything that we have been given within the limited power to do so. And we have fallen short. We haven't really have had the support of the people that created this body. And I'm not in here to point fingers. I'm here to say that we have a great opportunity to bring true transparency. As a commission, as a body, we must have a dialogue. And I just feel that it's just, I don't feel comfortable saying that I support her reappointment right now if we have not provided the performance review. As a commissioner, that's my position. And we have a long way to go. And I do apologize for not reaching out to each one of you. Like I said, it was a learning experience for me. I feel like we were just, thrown in there in a way with good intentions. However, the unintended consequences are like the killing of Jamar Clark and the frictions that we do have in our community. I serve in the Community Outreach Committee, and we have mapped out a great plan to come to the different precincts, to build relationships with inspectors, with the city council members that are in that area from each different precinct, so that we can move forward together. But we must do it, and that's all I have to say. Thank you for your work and everything that you do, but if we created, or if whomever created this body, we cannot ignore it. So where are we as representatives of a democracy if we don't follow through? Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dr. Heather Huseby.
Mayor and Chair and council members, I'm Heather Huseby. I'm Executive Director of YouthLink, and YouthLink serves over 2,000 homeless youth in our Twin City in Minneapolis. I've known Chief Harto for about 9 years in several capacities, both when she was in the precinct, but also as she's been the police chief. She has also served in our board at YouthLink and also in our advisory committee at YouthLink. So I've known her, and I'm speaking in those capacities. I think that as I represent YouthLink, I'm really just representing an agency that's really at the grassroots, an agency that's trying to make a change with some really key youth. And I always believe that if we can crack the code, I think, with these young people who are some of the most vulnerable young people in our Twin Cities, in our Minneapolis, that we really have made a difference in their lives. When Chief Harto was first appointed, I said that I considered her to be a foot soldier in the campaign for change, and I still believe that. But I think that change, we have to understand, is inevitable. Change is hard. Change is constant, and change is a process. And I think that we're in that stage of change that has to continue. When we look at the young people that I serve, are at a crossroads. They're 16 to 24. These are young people that I think that's where change starts in our community. If we can make a difference with these young people, they're our future. They've got 3 pathways that these young people can take. They can either take a pathway to new opportunities, and we can show them those opportunities, but we also have to show them that they have their rights and that they can live those opportunities. they can either go that opportunity, they can go the opportunity of, they can go the pathway of prison or law enforcement or be arrested, or they can go the opportunity, which is not an opportunity, of death. And these young people are experiencing homelessness. I know the mayor talks about, I heard today someone saying, or yesterday that she leaves no genius on the table. I've told her before, we're not going to leave any youth homeless on the streets. The chief of police has worked with us to build trusting relationships with our youth. We have a lot of work still to do. I had a youth tell me that's working on street outreach downtown Minneapolis that for the first time they're able to walk by the police and have some trust with the police, and that is building a relationship that she has been willing to commit to through her advisory committees with the youth, through her coming over to YouthLink. And she does that with us in problem solving. The youth are willing for me to call her. Rondo is coming over. We're able to have trusting relationships and problem solving. I really, really encourage you. We're at an action stage with the police chief to continue her appointment. This is really critical. We're at a critical stage for change with our young people. We have 150 youth every day over there at YouthLink, and it's critical that we continue with her tenure. I thank you for this. It's a critical time to reappoint her. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lisa Delgado.
Thank you very much. My name is Lisa Neal Delgado. I live at 1210 James Avenue North, 55411. And I'll say that again, 55411. I live in a zip code that has probably seen the most abuses, most atrocities, most, man, I just can't explain it. That's been my house all my life, born and raised there. So like Mr. Edwards, and I don't have quite the years that he has. I've seen a lot of chiefs come and go in Minneapolis. There's probably one that I could say, other than Chief Hartog, that I would support for reappointment. But you guys screwed that up maybe about 6 or 7 years ago when you let Chief McManus go. So what I will say is this. I can echo Lisa Clemens' statement as far as the chief opening up her office to the Department of Justice. I come from 20 years of the military service, and the commander, when they take charge of a new unit, the first thing they do is they go to the inspector general and they say, come in and take a look at my command. Tell me what I need to fix. Tell me what's going right. Tell me what's going wrong. And that's what Chief Hartog did with her department. She got her department in a mess because there was a chief there that was allowed to stay way too long. I'm extremely vocal when it comes to police misconduct because I've seen it all. And I know how officers should conduct themselves, not all officers. I'm not going to say that Chief Hartog hasn't made any mistakes. When the forward operating base went up in front of the 4th precinct right after the occupation, I was appalled. I was assaulted, insulted, and I was offended. But I still reached out to the chief to say, we've got to do better. I'm on one of her committees, the Community Engagement Committee. And I was real shocked when members reached out to me and said they needed my type of vocal. They needed my type of voice on the committee. I was extremely shocked because I am very critical of the police department. And for as critical as I am of the police department, it's not necessary anything that's within the chief's control. You have an out of control union that represents and helps retain aggressive and abusive officers. You have policies in place that protect those officers when it comes to the misconduct, and the community wants transparency. If the community wants transparency, they can't find information out because of that Data Privacy Acts, and all of that is not in the control of the police department. There's a lot of processes in place. I think Chief Hartog is off to a good start. I think she has a long way to go. And I think that there's probably not a chief that you can bring in to replace her that is going to be as aggressive in doing the things that she's done so far to make the changes that need to be made as far as police reform, especially when it comes to my community. Thank you.
The next speaker is Don Samuels.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's great to be back to support Chief Harto and for reappointment. I also live in 55411, so I know what it feels like to be to watch and experience harsh policing. And I came down to City Hall. My very first time was to talk to Chief Olson about those issues before I was even thinking about politics. So I know what it's like to be there. I know what it's like to be here as chair of the Public Safety Committee and to sit with the mayor every 2 weeks to talk with the chief about who's going to be the next chief. And out of those conversations and the vision that we had for policing in the city, the appointment of Chief Harto was made because we felt that she was a chief for the 21st century, that she was thoroughly creative, receptive, community-oriented. She was brilliant. She was collaborative. And I have, in my position as chair of a couple committees, reviewed a lot of the performance of a lot of heads of departments. And I don't think this is violating any Data Practices Act to say. I've never seen the kind of support for a department head in my entire 11 years here that I saw for Chief Harto from her peers in 360 reviews. And when you combine that with the fact that I've never seen such an outpouring of support from the community when she was appointed, that this room was full of people singing her praises about her policing and community policing posture. It was impressive. And she has brought that into reality. The Jamar Clark thing happens all over the country. You heard former chiefs of St. Paul talk about the basic function of police is to support and maintain the status quo, which is then interpreted as often as justice, and often it's not. And so to have a chief who's trying to transform the irregularities is very impressive. To have a chief who will call up on NPR and challenge the head of the union publicly, who's advocating for harsher reactions to the community, who is voicing their First Amendment rights, to do it stridently and articulately, I think is the kind of chief we have and the kind of chief we want, who will multiply the bike patrols and foot patrols. We've never had that. And I encourage you to stay with this chief so that we can continue and expand upon this great work of relating to our community in a new and firm way. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sandra Patterson.
Hello, Council. President Johnson, Chair Yang, Mayor Hodges. Thank you for having this conversation today. I'm here in support. I live in area code 55412, and I'm here in support of the reappointment of Chief Harto. Each day when I leave my home, I measure the pulse of the city, and when I leave, I feel more safe than I did in the past. I also want to talk about her leadership. What I've observed is she's been there, she has opened doors, she's intelligent, she's no nonsense, she speaks her mind, and she means what she says, and she says what she means. I feel safer. And I'm also here to talk about the legacy that my father, who was a police officer for the Minneapolis Police Department in the 80s, Raymond Presley, 70s and 80s. And one of his goals was to increase the amount of minorities on the Minneapolis Police Department. And I feel that Chief Harto represents women, minorities. I also feel like she does an excellent job. I have all of the confidence in her to take this department to the next level. One thing I am disappointed in is that we have to go through this every 2 years. I think that the police chief's tenure should be longer than that so that they can really root themselves. I'm going to read a letter dated January 16, 1973, from the Minneapolis Police Department, Gordon M. Johnson. It is my pleasure and privilege to recommend Officer Raymond Presley for an Award of Valor. The facts are as follows. On January 15, 1973, at approximately 20 hours, Officer Presley, myself, Deputy Chief Elmer Nordland, and Lieutenant Jake McCarthy was attending a community relations meeting at 1108 West Broadway. We were informed that 2 police officers had been shot while answering a call at 1516 Russell Avenue North. When Officer Presley and I arrived at the scene, we found the house surrounded with the suspect still inside. A successful attempt to contact the suspect was made, and when learning the suspect's identity, Officer Presley informed me that he knew that the person was a heavy drug. When learning the suspect's identity, Officer Presley informed me he knew him and that he was a heavy user of hard narcotics. Officer Presley.
Anderson, I'm sorry to have to interrupt you, but you're welcome to submit the letter, but if you could just wrap up in the next couple sentences, we have to make room for the others.
Okay. What I like to say is this is what Police Harto has to go through every day, what our officers are doing and the decisions that they're making. Her programs and processes that she has implemented are moving towards making us all safer, addressing how the police officers handle situations. And I believe that she has a lot of experience. She's been around a long time. She loves community policing, and she's the best person for this job.
Thank you. The next speaker is Asha Long.
Good afternoon. My name is Asha Long. I live at 1910 Colfax Avenue South. I'm here as a community member and an organizer of Black Lives Matter Minneapolis. I'm here to say that I do oppose the reappointment of Janae Harto to her post. We need a chief that's willing to work with communities, and while our mayor has alluded to the intentions and some of the hearsay around her community engagement, that's nothing that I have been affected by. That's nothing I have heard of. It's important that we don't allow the murder and criminalization of our most vulnerable communities. While my time at the 4th Precinct, I spoke with a number of the officers there, and I, in my lifetime, have engaged with a number of officers, and I find that Minneapolis Police Department officers are culturally incompetent. To have a police force that does not understand systemic and institutional racism is a detriment to the most vulnerable communities in Minneapolis. There have been over 1,000 discipline complaints filed over the last 3 years, and there's been no discipline. And for me, I wonder if she's capable of addressing all of these concerns. Also, during my occupation of the 4th Precinct, the conduct of the officers was absolutely atrocious and terroristic. There were macings, bike rammings of protesters, and verbal threats directed to not only adults, but children. After the precinct had been come to a close, had been ended, shut down, the terrorism continued and was inflicted on protesters, police officers standing outside of their houses, being bothered for driving past the precinct. And the notion that that precinct needed $600,000 tells us to increase their security, tells us just where policing and community, the lines between those two is nice and thick and hard. For me, just as the school board has had to start their search over, I think it would be of great benefit if we started the search for a police chief over in Minneapolis. Thank you.
The next speaker is Mel Reeves.
Good afternoon, folks. I'm a North Minneapolis resident. I wasn't going to say anything because most people know that I'm opposed to the system of policing to begin with. I don't think the system of policing is going to do us justice because I think its basic reason for being is to reinforce the stereotypes of our society, the racial and the class ones, and thus we have the system we have. But I do think that things can be done a little better without question. I disagree with one of the earlier speakers who suggested that perfection is what we're looking for. I think it would be silly and also dishonest to talk about perfection since we're human beings and we're clearly frail and imperfect. But I think there is an expectation. I think it's fair to have an expectation if you run into a police officer that encounter doesn't end with you having lost your teeth or a leg or an arm or even your life. I think that's a reasonable thing to expect. Or if you're driving on the car, I think it's reasonable to expect that you're not pulled over just because of the color of your skin. Or if you're in a conversation with the police, I think it's reasonable to expect that the police not disrespect you. So of course we're not stupid, so we don't expect anybody to be perfect. But when it comes to, since this is an open forum, I would take this opportunity because I wanted to support the young people because I had some problems with occupation. On the one hand, I thought some people handled themselves pretty well, but on the other hand, the folks who don't handle themselves so well didn't do so well. I thought it was atrocious that guns were actually pointed at people. Even under other administrations, I don't remember guns being pointed at protesters. But I also take issue with some things that Janae Hartaw has done. Under her administration, 2 black youth have been killed, Terrence Franklin and now Jamar Clark. I think that's a big deal. I don't know what that says, because again, I think that no matter who you get as the police chief, if the system of policing doesn't change, people who are responsible for them don't change, that's always going to be in common. No matter how many police chiefs you have, if you don't change the way police operate, we're going to keep coming here talking about one police chief or another. I wish I had time to talk about this because this I thought was egregious and I think it was really disrespectful. When there was a community meeting planned to talk to your chief, she said that she had gotten a bomb threat and that she'd been threatened. And I kept looking at all the newspaper articles, and not once did I see her give any evidence, any proof that she'd actually been threatened, which I thought was terrible, really, really, really terrible. She also did, when we were fighting to get justice for Terrence Franklin, when she was losing ground, obviously, politically in the community, she called a press conference in which she gave this scant evidence in which she said that the police said that the sock in which the gun was in had his DNA. Now, the gun didn't have his fingerprints or his DNA. Even the press walked away from that press conference. I think this particular chief is more cunning than any of the others you have. She's a little slicker and a little more cunning. She said some things that have had me go, whoa. She actually pitted, I know my time's pretty close up, but you got to hear, she actually pitted 2 parents against one another, which I think was really almost evil. One parent had been victimized by some street violence, one parent's child, and the other child had been victimized by the police. I think she should have been humble enough to stay out of that rather than setting this woman up to call a press conference to denounce the community. I think that was pretty egregious. And so that's the police chief that you guys have here.
Mr. Reeves, thank you.
I'm done.
Our next speaker is Shuan Johnson. Siobhan. Okay, sorry about that.
Good afternoon. My name is Siobhan Johnson, and I'm a Minneapolis resident. I was very hesitant to come and speak today because I do not know Chief Hartaw that well, and I wanted to hear what others had to say about her. The only encounter that I did have with her personally is on November 18th when myself and several of my students who were peacefully standing in front of the vestibule were removed with deep aggression and force. I will say that Chief Hartaw was very compassionate in our interaction, but that had nothing to do or did not stop the level of aggression that her officers conducted themselves with from that point on throughout the occupation. Although the occupation is a significant part of why some of my criticism have been raised about the MPD, it has nothing to do with my longstanding history as a Northsider who's grown up under a lot of police brutality just in day-to-day interactions. And so although I'm not in opposition of Chief Hartaw, I'm not necessarily in support. But I am definitely in support of us moving together to be better collectively as a community. There definitely needs to be some deeper, authentic, truer, intentional attempts for the police to see the residents of North Minneapolis and the city as human beings. And whatever that training, whatever that education looks like, words and lip service is not going to do what we need to be done. There needs to be a great deal of intentionality and authenticity when saying that we really want to make change. We are at a great opportunity in our time. We deal with a lot of white privilege in the state, in addition to Black resistance, in addition to white supremacy and racism. And we need to be honest about that. And as we look at our MPD, I don't know, I would like to believe the best in people because I know a lot of good officers, but I know a lot of folks who don't see people who look like me or the young men who look like me as human beings. And so I would just encourage Chief Harto to truly be authentic and intentional because now is not the time to continue what we've been doing. I think we were blessed with the occupation. It could have been worse. So thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker, can't really get the last name, but it's Dennis. I apologize, Dennis.
Oh, no problem. Good afternoon. I apologize for my appearance. I have more respect for the court than that. Just finished helping a friend move out of town. I came directly here. First off, I was a direct witness at the Jamar Clark shooting, his killing, his murder. And the police response to that, to the onlooking witnesses, was just horrible. We were just standing there before he died and after. And we're witnesses, so we have a right to stand on that public property. They intimidated, they threatened, they mistreated everyone in the area. And sorry, I'm unprepared. Like I said, I've been moving for 24 hours. And I grew up in Eden Prairie. Went there. My mom moved there, poor family, moved there to get me a better education because I tested out of everything in Minneapolis. I experienced every type of discrimination and racism possible. At 16, I was pulled over by every single police officer in Eden Prairie until they recognized me. Now, I'm 45 now. But my child is scared of police, and he has not had any negative interaction, but he watches the news. This whole system needs to be changed and changed radically. I do not know Police Chief Harto personally. I do oppose the appointment. I do know that we need radical change and by somebody new. And I guarantee you that right with all the deaths going on, all the murders, all the killing of all these unarmed people, if change does not happen peacefully, which we are requesting and demanding, I guarantee you the citizens of the country were going to do it in the form of revolution. It's going to be bad for everyone. So I urge you all to think very, very clearly about your decisions going forward, not just this hearing, but all the others, everything going forward. Because since you're the ones that are appointed, if you don't make the change, this will continue to happen, and we will still be here, and then it'll just go downhill. Our society will go downhill. I got a few seconds, so let me look at my notes. So with that, I guess I am done. I apologize. I have a lot more to say, but I will come back another time. Thank you.
All right. Our next speaker is Jana Mecki.
Hello, Chair and Mayor, Council President and Committee. I'm Jana Mecki, and I staff the Loring Park Neighborhood Office. And as part of my role of staffing that office, I monthly meet with the small businesses from the freeway to Grant Street. There are about 40 small businesses there. Mostly family-owned ethnic businesses, and unfortunately, they're not able to come in the middle of the afternoon because it's their lunch hour. I will say that we have had a lot of issues of crime in that area to the point where the businesses have been wanting to just rip their hair out. And Chief Harto and her administration and whoever was at the first precinct at the time came out, met with the businesses,
talked to them, put together strategies of what needed to happen, and moved ahead. We have beat officers on the street meeting with those businesses. We have strategies put together with intervention by Mad Dads and other folks to kind of help redirect issues of crime, and strong partnerships with St. Stephen's to reach out, especially to veterans who are experiencing homelessness. As an individual, I first met Janae Harteau in 1990 when she was the beat cop on Chicago and Franklin, and the first to actually work with the community to put a community center together so that we could start community policing. At that time in 1990, we talked about needing more money for treatment, needing more money for prevention, for youth programs, for intervention, for good housing. We're still working on that, and we still need to work on those types of prevention and intervention. But I totally believe in the chief. I totally support your appointment of the chief, and I'm glad to see her come back. And in 30 years of doing this work, we need continuity. Every time we get a new department head, you start over. And I trust Janae, I trust her techniques, I trust her appointments, and I trust the people and her strategies and what she's doing. So I hope that you will reappoint her. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And that was the last person that had signed up to speak on this issue. And so with that, we have now completed the hearings on the 3 charter officers nominated by the mayor, which includes the civil rights director, the chief of fire and police. As indicated, we will keep these 3 hearings open and refer them to the committee of the whole, which meets next Wednesday, February 10th, beginning at 10 a.m. in this chamber. Interested members of the public may testify on those nominations at that time and may submit written comments for the record by addressing them to the office of the city clerk. We've already approved the motion to achieve that referral to the committee of the whole. I'd like to express my gratitude to everyone who came to this meeting today to provide input on these 3 mayoral nominations, and I apologize. I will take full responsibility for just the confusion that has been caused by all of this stuff. And yeah, I know somebody's laughing in the audience. You know, usually we need to take some blame for this. So thank you all for being here. And with no further business before this committee, we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.